Well, my 9-year-old power supply finally died yesterday while trying to make this video, actually, so I was out of commission for 24 hours. I'm back now, and we're back on Warhammer 3 for a high-level match between two very experienced players. Kark, commanding the Ogre Kingdoms, has been showcased on the channel many times before, and Cat of War, controlling the vampire counts of Sylvania, will be on the other side. Obviously, Darktide has been the main focus of the channel over the last few weeks. It's a game I've been looking forward to for a very long time, and clearly I've been enjoying it, so videos on that will continue. But if you're a Total War fan that doesn't enjoy Darktide or Vermintide, please realize that I have not abandoned you. I will continue to work it in. It's just we're in a downtime for Mortal Empires right now while we wait for Chaos Dwarfs. There will be plenty of cool stuff coming as we move towards Christmas and especially on into the new year. But understand that I play many games, being able to work on videos for other titles, and flexing those creative muscles a bit is very refreshing for my brain, and variety can be fun. Got like 3,000 Total War videos already on the channel, and this is number 3001, so plenty to choose from there. Anyway, today we are on the Total Tavern map pack, which means unique custom maps and some much needed flavor for the Domination experience. And this one will play out very much like a land battle when it's ogres and undead, because neither can nor want to rely heavily on firepower in this particular matchup. The map layout will be quite conducive towards running directly into each other and just brawling like it's football style. Greasus Goldtooth, a butcher, and a giant will form the elite command HQ for the ogre tribes, supported by Iron Guts and Man-Eaters, soon to spill in from the reinforcement points. Manfred von Karstein on a Hellsteed, Sword of Unholy Power, Invocation of the Heck, Von Halsdance Macabre, and Raise Dead will be his spells, so he can provide quite the magical deluge from on top, and he's really going to be the only thing in the air this entire battle. Can't be touched, can't be caught, can't be moved, can't be rocked. When will these ogres learn? Vampires have an absolutely gigantic army right now, supported by corpse cards with Unholy Lodestone for the area effect heals, and Kark and his ogres are going for a bit more elite stuff here. A lot of money invested in that giant and in Greasus, who can actually be pretty okay in this matchup because he can't get shot. Just think of Greasus like a giant, which have always had kind of a unique niche against the vampire counts. As for Kark and his Man-Eaters, it's all about the gut plate. Backline of Noblar Trappers, we just saw them unleashed with their first volley of knives, and those can do a number on Crypt Horrors and any of the unarmored monstrous infantry that will be swarming in and kind of characterize the game mode. Monstrous infantry is just a big deal for most factions that can field it in Domination. Overcast Skelly Boys into the middle ranks of the Ogre Kingdoms. Giant gonna move right through like they do not even exist, while the Iron Guts follow up with a big-time charge, and those shock weapons will do a great job crumping their way through this summon, but it's a decent way for the vampire counts to just start putting a little bit of pressure on the map. Ideally, you'd like to see some of those raised deads in the back lines, because Noblar Trappers, while they will defeat zombies, won't be able to clear them out very quickly, and it will prevent them from firing, but one or two of these summons kind of in the middle, just to tie up the monstrous infantry and give them something to tire them down, lower their stats, get those exhaustion debuff penalties going. Not a bad idea at all, and I don't know how tired a giant would be after killing an entire unit of zombies. My guess is it's probably hitting at least winded, or maybe even tired after the tithe and those zombie summons are finished up. So certainly a good way to tie up some of the more important troops on the ogre side. The middle Noblars are obviously not going to survive very long, and it does look like the vampire counts just have way more infantry on the field, which is not surprising considering how cheap their skellies and zombies are. Already putting pressure on the ogres naturally. You can see that point number 1 fully in control of Kark and the ogres at the moment. Point number 2 near the spawn of Cat of War, and that neutral VP, point number 3, over on the other side near the temple. Very interesting tactic from Kark. You can see that the giant and Greasus are pretty much being sent solo into the midst of this vampire count army, and you might think that's a dangerous play, but against Crypt Horrors, which are really the only thing that even have the potential to damage them, they're really not actually very scared about monstrous infantry at all. Obviously, they don't have any innate bonus first large, and Greasus has bonus first large and AP himself, so he'll actually do quite fine in that matchup, especially when Noblar Trappers are throwing their knives into those engagements and getting the monstrous infantry blobbed up around those single entities. So even though Greasus has taken a little bit of damage so far, the Crypt Horrors are pretty much already crumbling out, and the king, the over-tyrant, the shockingly obese Drake Tooth Gold Crusher, getting some good value there. And the Hex Race are moving around the flank here. Awesome looking cav unit, one of my favorites to see. bit surprised to see them and not Blood Knights, but I will say Hexwraiths do have an advantage over Blood Knights in that they can cause terror routes in and amongst these Gnoblar trappers in the back lines, and that might be the play we're looking at here. Now, the nice thing about Gnoblar trappers is that they don't care overly much about being charged by enemy cav. They have that additional utility with the Gnoblar traps to slow them down and allow you to focus your fire onto the cavalry. The Ogres don't have a lot of ranged firepower here. They only have 2 man-eaters with pistols, so not going to be able to deal with the Hexwraiths too easily. And if the Vampire counts can terrify the Gnoblars off quickly, these Hexwraiths might have a field day cycle charging and harassing that back line. Important thing for Manfred, though, is that he will need to support them. They are expensive, isolated, and squishy, even with, or maybe because of, that ethereal trait. Just like with Blood Knights, support them with Invocation of Nehek. They can work wonders for you. Charge them in and forget about them. They will not do much, so we'll see how that goes. Manfred was actually down below half HP, and still is, mostly because of those Gnoblar trappers and their knife focus fire, so pretty impressive. There have been a couple miscasts from Manfred as well. Now, one other thing you'll notice a lot from the Ogres this game is they're going to use Dismember all the time, especially if more Hexwraiths are coming out. Dismember is that first army ability for the Ogres, very easy to rack up when you're fighting against the Undead. You'll be able to spam that all game long, which means every time the Hexwraiths try to disengage and cycle charge, they're going to get slowed down, and this is the result. You have to be very cognizant of where and how you apply pressure on an opponent's backline, particularly in domination mode on certain maps, because Vanguard spawns, and even sometimes just the main reinforcement point, are close enough that if you get hit by a Dismember or some kind of slow, you might not be able to run away before those newly spawned troops are upon you, sandwich you, and then you meet the fate of those Hexwraiths. So even an Invocation of Heck now would not save that ghostly cavalry. That regiment is going to be destroyed. Looks like we've got a heal coming down on the Man-Eaters in this fight. That's some Troll Guts upgraded. They've lost 3 models, but an upgraded Troll Guts will get them back into fighting shape for sure, and it is going to be very difficult for the Vampire counts to wear down some of these high-stat Ogre troops. Man-Eaters in particular have a real nice stat line, not easy to kill at all. They don't have a ton of bonus versus large. Blood Knights are really their best source of that, and Terrorgeist, you won't be seeing either of those this battle. But while the main fight might be going slightly in favor of the Ogre Kingdoms, out on this side, Vampire counts are asserting their dominance, and Hexwraiths are a big part of that. Big charge into the Ogre Bulls. Dual weapon troops will not perform well in this kind of engagement, and with all kinds of cheap infantry to just throw onto objective number 3, I would expect the Vampire counts to be able to maintain control over that objective for quite a long time here, particularly if those Hexwraiths are microed well. Manfred, back past half HP, probably cast an Invocation of Nehek on himself. A lot of routing troops on the Ogre side that are basically all the way back in spawn. Probably some of those will be desummoned momentarily, and the Ogres are pushing through. Greasus is down to half HP, pushed onto a corpse cart with Unholy Lodestone. Getting rid of some of that AoE healing would be a very good idea if you're the Ogres, and more Raised Dead. More skeleton summons from Manfred. He's been overcasting and miscasting a hell of a lot in this battle. It's a big reason why he continues to lose health, but he doesn't really care. He could be operating at 200, 300 health. As long as he's not crumbling, he is not going to be in any danger of dying because there's not enough shooting and there's nothing to put pressure on him in the air. Vampire counts doing a great job out on the west side, have routed off both Ogre Bull units, and Manfred coming in with the rear charge isn't going to make things any easier for the Ogre tribes, but Greasus and his Iron Guts, who are now up past 200 kills, been doing work in the center. Butcher, big time single target heal, will ensure that large investment for the Giant will continue fighting and holding down big sections of the Vampire count army. If you're going to bring a Giant to the battle, you need to make sure that investment pays off, and the best way to ensure that your units get value is by healing them. So both Butcher and Troll Guts will be the main focus if he wants to keep Greasus and the Giant in this engagement for a long period of time. Now, this is just about as lore-friendly as it gets, dude. Greasus Goldtooth and his Iron Guts, which he's known for in the lore, they pushed all the way through. They're not putting pressure on the Vampire count spawn point and preventing a lot of this infantry from leaving their spawn. Crypt Ghouls are coming out now. They'll be quickly onto the objective to contest it. But if Kark wants to win this game, he's going to have to start capping some objectives, because right now, 750 for the Vampire counts with the double cap and only 400 for the Ogres. It's a relatively sizable lead at this stage in the game. Ogres will need to secure a double cap relatively soon if they want to get themselves back into this fight, or they'll need to just sweep the map of all enemy units, which is going to be unlikely considering how cheap skeletons are and how easy they are to reinforce with. It's hard to triple cap against the Undead. And the Crypt Ghouls are going to give Greasus the fight he's looking for, which I'm surprised about. If I was using those Crypt Ghouls, I'd probably want them flanking around and putting additional pressure on objective number 1, which is the Ogre's natural. But at the moment, they'll charge in with their poison, and Greasus will lay about with his Over Tyrant's Club, start smacking him around with the Scepter of the Sky Titans. He's such a piece of crap, dude. I really don't know what you're supposed to do with Greasus to make him look cool, but he is just kind of a meme at this point, and I wish that he wasn't, but like visually, it's just kind of hard for me to get excited about him. He just looks like such a piece of poop. Just a big, poopy ogre boy. And his gameplay is pretty poopy too. Doesn't leave, I mean, it leaves a lot to be desired, doesn't it? He's doing okay this battle though, tying up a big section of the Vampire Count's army, while the Dire Pack, with their bonus versus large, are teaming up with the Hex Race, and that's a real smart play if you're the Vampire Counts. If you get those two in tandem, striking at the rear of Man-Eaters or anything with, I mean, frankly, Hex Race have armor piercing, so they could perform well in those kind of fights too, but especially if it's unarmored and low leadership, those terror routes, combined with the bonus versus large from the Dire Pack, could be pretty impactful. Speaking of impact, Iron Guts with their two-handed shock mauls going to work. Almost 300 kills now, plunging into the fray against Crypt Horrors. We've seen a ton of monsters and infantry coming out of the woodwork from the Vampire Counts, and now Manfred wants to get stuck in. He doesn't have any wave clear spells to get the Noblars off his ass, but he's a decent melee combatant, and if he has support from a bunch of zombies and skellies, we can definitely do stuff like pick off the isolated Butcher. So perhaps no more spell casting for the Ogre Kingdoms. That could be problematic because the Troll Guts has been a big reason why the Giant and Greasus have been able to overextend in the manner that they have, and that might be a flaw with the Vampire Count's army, that he doesn't really have anything that's well designed for punishing the large single entities of the Ogres. As I say that though, we did just cross over and take a look at the Giant who's rounding off. I'm not sure we'll be able to see it return again. I guess it will depend if Kark has another Butcher to heal it back up. The Crypt Horrors that were chasing it just died, and the Giant should be able to create some space between it and the Skeleton Spearmen. So if he has another heal lined up, then we may see that Giant return, and that would be important. I'm actually kind of surprised he was able to wear that thing down. My best guess is that he surrounded it with Crypt Horrors and just kind of chunked its HP down slowly over time. Blood Knights, I think, would have been really big for the Vampire Counts in this battle. Just a single unit would have kept the Ogres honest and would have straight up punished and killed Greasus in this situation. Instead, he has a chance to escape here, but, I mean, wow, he's literally tying up 4 or 5 units of the Vampire Counts right now. Wondering if he's going to have the mass or speed to get away. Ogres will need a big-time resurgence here on their own natural to push through and go save their Over Tyrant, because if Greasus dies here, I think the Ogre Kingdoms are going to be in pretty big trouble, and they are going to secure their dominance over objective number 3, which is in control of Kark and the Ogres right now, but 4 or 5 additional skeleton units coming out of the woodwork, and they're just going to swarm this point. One of the reasons why the Vampire Counts are so unbelievably strong in this game mode, they can just keep sending infantry onto objectives, and it can be very difficult to clear them off in time, especially if you don't have offensive magic, which Kark does not this battle. He doesn't have any magic now because his Butcher died, but he does have his army abilities, and it is one of the main factors that makes Warhammer 3 races so strong. The fact that they are always able to apply those army abilities and get all that additional utility, and basically have free winds of magic that are generated in other ways. So a Butcher sent the way of the Giant will allow it to return to the fold. That's a big deal, and Manfred von Karstein might have bit off a bit more than he could chew here, because he's not going to be able to take down a Giant, especially not one that's healing. So Manfred is pretty close to the healing cap now, only has about 700 hit points left to heal up. That might be covered by that single Invocation of Nahek. Giant is going to try to help clear out some of the Hex Race and important stuff on objective number 3, the contested, but Ogres and Vampire Counts are at a standstill in the center, and that's really, I think, what the Vampire Counts want right now. I think they want this to kind of be a stalemate, for things to grind to a halt here. Because if things remain as they are, vampire counts are going to win with a single cap. Ogres need to make their push, and they need to make it now with a big swarm of infantry. They do have Iron Guts moving over to help control point number 3. But they'll need a lot of bulls to push through their own natural and push on to the vampire counts natural on the other side of the battlefield. Again, clearing off these corpse carts with unholy lodestones, very good idea. Making sure the giant is the one to do it. Probably the best single entity monster in the game for performing that role. If there's one thing giants are good at doing, it is killing foot characters and foot single entities in only a handful of swings. And yeah, the corpse cart was not going to survive for very long in that kind of situation. The issue the ogres face at the moment is they don't have a lot of supply. We saw they had 700 a few moments ago. They just summoned some extra ogre bulls, but can they play around those cryptors and get through the zombie wall that is currently shambling their way towards objective number 1? They need a cap number 2. I think they need a triple cap here if they want to win this battle. Dire Pack with a full surround off on the giant. Really good move from the vampire counts. I think that might be the end of the giant, which has made a pretty big impact on this battle. Manfred von Karstein we just saw land in the background to help duel Dire Pack and Manfred to get... Oh, that giant is such a beast, though. I'm wrong. Yeah, the giant's going to be able to survive that and maybe push back both units. Giant has been an absolute beast. It's another butcher. Yeah, those army abilities for the Ogre Kingdoms have been so impactful this game. But the giant is heal cap now, and I don't think he got full value out of that butcher. Might have been better served going towards Greasus, who I think has only had a troll gut sent his way. But the ogres are not going to be able to get through these cryptors and zombies that are buffed up, supported by the corpse cart with unholy lodestone. It's 1350 for red, the vampire counts, 1050 for the Ogre Kingdoms, who still have control of the double cap and may be able to maintain that. But double cap is not going to be enough for the ogres to secure victory, and that is why we are seeing the giant stomp his way over. Not good at capping, but might be good at clearing out anything of high value that decides to spawn in and try to defend. Just a huge outpouring of army abilities from Kark and the ogres. Massacre now for base weapon damage, terror, and AP, just to help clear out more bodies, deal more damage. This deluge, this onslaught of the Walking Dead. Vampire counts still have not been able to wrestle control of objective number 3 back. You can see that objective number 2 is beginning to slowly eke in favor of the Ogre Kingdoms. But like I said, they have to invest some to reinforce on point number 1 to defend that. But they also need some Ogre Bulls to, or Nobblers, whatever, to move around and get onto objective number 2. Because it's 14-17, only 80 points away from a Vampire Counts victory, and House Cat of War is looking to be in the ascendancy here unless Kark can pull out some kind of miracle, which is a possibility, but the window is rapidly closing. Nice move from the Vampire Counts to bring the Crypt Horrors back. That will ensure that the contested point, objective number 2, does not fall in favor of the Ogres, and if Kark can't control that final objective, he's not going to be able to win this game. Full surround on the giant. Manfred von Karstein with his sword of unholy power, biting deep into the shin bones and toesies of that giant single entity monster. And that is going to be the end. Big win for the vampire counts and an impressive performance from the Undead. Ogres did what they could there. Their man-eaters were awesome. Giant and Greasus, both single entity monsters, performed very well. And I really like the usage of army abilities. We saw 2 or 3 dismembers that were highly impactful and really good against those Hex Rays, slowing them down, shutting them down, preventing them from escaping. We also saw a dismember sent towards Manfred, who I think was a really good choice. We're not going to see crazy value out of Manfred von Karstein or other Bald Fred the Mad, but the Raised Deads, the Hellsteed to just go wherever he is needed, the continuous heals, and Overwatch from on high. Very, very good lord. Yeah, Greasus and the Giant were very nice. I mean, even just forget about the value for a second. The fact that they were able to just push in to the Vampire Count spawn and tie up huge sections of the army, really important. But I think Kark did need to put a little bit more pressure on the Vampire Count's natural and a little bit earlier, and obviously that's easier said than done. There's just so many infantry units the vampire counts can send out. But they were lacking a little bit of teeth on the anti-large side. Concerted push to the vampire counts natural a little bit earlier, perhaps a little bit more mobility, might have been beneficial for Kark and the Ogres in this one. GG, hope you guys enjoyed.